Hey guys, this is a first time video I've done like this in a while. I know I've kept everybody posted on my dad when he was dying of cancer, and this is a little bit different. This is something that I want to be real with. I don't do a whole lot of these, but as most people know that we go to church with, we've been struggling a lot since January, and I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, everybody goes through things, but January 13th, we get a call that my niece died. Now, the reason this was so devastating to us is because the father, which is my nephew, has been like a son to me and my husband, because when he was growing up, he stayed with us a lot because he wanted to be with us, and we got, he became like a son to me. His mom and I are cousins, but because of how we were raised growing up, we were raised being as close as sisters. So her son became my son too, because that's how I felt and that's how I still feel about him. So losing his daughter to me was like losing a grandchild. So it really devastated us, and I don't think I really cried as much as I did when we went to her funeral. It was just one of those things to where, I was hurt. My husband was hurt, and we bawled. So during the time that we were at the funeral, my dad was in the hospital in Jackson. He had been there from a day before. I think he got in there the 12th of January, maybe I think it was around before we went to Sparta anyways. He was in the hospital, and he stayed there for about a week and one day, I believe is what it was. And we were trying to find out what was going on. They ended up putting a bigger stent in his bile duct because of the other one being messed up or something. And we were trying to figure out what was going on, and for some reason the nurses there that was working would not tell me and my husband anything. And prior, when we had issues and he was in the hospital, they told us everything that was going on. But I don't know who this one is, but this certain nurse, she refused to tell us anything. She said, well, he's competent, he can tell you what he wants, but she didn't know my dad. So my husband threw a fit after a week and told him to have the doctor call. So when the doctor called, he said, my father-in-law's been in the hospital for a week and a day now, and we still don't know anything. He said, what's going on? So the doctor finally tells us that my dad, at that point, this was January 22nd when we found out that my dad had stage 4 pancreatic and lung cancer. Okay, so we dealt with the death. Then we find out the news of my dad having stage 4 cancer. February rolls around, and our car starts acting up, and we end up having to have a new motor put in. And I didn't think nothing of it. I just figured, with the death, my dad, and our car had just, things happen. We got a motor put in, so in the meantime, we used the church van for transportation while our car was getting fixed. February 26th is when the hospice nurse had told my husband that my dad needed to move in with us. So my brother was coming down that week, and we decided to keep my dad. So my husband says, Bob, when you get here Saturday, he said, I'm probably not going to bring you home. And he knew he was getting to that place, so he didn't argue. He just said, okay. So my brother was down, and my brother seen him, and then my aunt and uncle was here with him, and they came, and they seen my dad. They prayed with him, and March 3rd is when my dad passes away. He passed away March 3rd. So then we had this funeral to deal with, and it's been a struggle because it seems like one thing after another has hit us. And it seems like every time we turn around, we're being fought. Spiritually, it seems like we're just being hit and hit and hit. And my husband was testifying in church, and then he says the one thing that makes you wonder, what else could go wrong? But he did say it. He said that after he was testifying, he said, I really don't know what else could happen, but April starts, and the first week of April, it started with my oldest son, my middle son. He got sick, and he had body aches and pains, and he ended up with the flu, but his didn't last as long. My daughter got it next, and she had spent a week being sick. So within her week, I got sick right in the middle of that and ended up with the flu. So by the end of the 3rd week, everybody in my house had the flu. So I'm sitting here thinking, with everything that we have been through since January until now, I mean, it's easy to say I can give up on God. It's easy to say that God has punished me for the last time and I'm not going to bother with him no more, because, I mean, I could sit here and I could name you, just like I just did, from January until now, everything that we have been through. And I can tell you that God's not been there for us, because I can play the pity party game, and I can tell you all the hurt that we've been through, all the pain we've struggled with financially, everything that has been going on in our lives. But I'm not, because amongst all of that, even though we have bills coming in, even though we have struggles that are present and they make themselves known, I still cannot say that God has let us down, because no matter what we face, no matter what we go through in our life, God has He's never let us down. And I will not sit here and I will not degrade him for the trials we go through, because there's always a purpose for everything we go through. You know, I mean, like my husband said, I don't know the reason Avery died. I don't know why my dad ended up with stage 4 cancer and died because of it. I don't know why our car had a motor put in it, and I don't know why we all ended up with the flu. But I know that we go through things, and it's only for a season when we go through them. It's never a permanent situation. There's always light. And when I think about the things that God has done, I look at all the things. Come here. My daughter's out here playing, sorry. When I look at the things that we've been through, and then we're praying for light at the end of the tunnel. We're praying that God would see our struggles that we're going through and answer in some way. It doesn't matter how, but we're struggling, and but yet we're still trying to see light during all of this. So my husband's praying for financial blessings. I'm praying pretty much for the same thing, but we're also praying that, somewhere we would get a break. Now, after my dad passed away, he had his truck title through a loan company, because he had consolidated a lot of his bills before he had died, and he owed money on it. So once he had passed, I guess they had paid off the remaining balance of what he owed on that truck. Now, I didn't think nothing about it, because I wasn't looking for anything else. He died, it was paid off. I was grateful for that. And but when my husband had prayed about all of the bills we had coming in, our kids go to a private school, so we owed a tuition on it, and we never even paid a dime on it at this point. And this is March, and they've already been there since August of last year. I mean, they've been there longer than that, but each year is a new year, so we pay each year the tuition for it. And we hadn't paid anything for this current year they're in, because we haven't had the money. With everything that hit us, we literally have not had no money to pay on it. So we're sitting here, and my husband's praying this day, and he's like, God, all of the needs we have, and he starts naming all the bills we have to God. Praying, he said that in the Bible says that when you come to God, you expect and you thank God for the blessing that he hasn't given you. You'll get that blessing. God will reward you. He'll give you what you're asking for. You just got to come to him in faith and ask him, and he'll do it. So that's what he done. And that day, the same day he had prayed this, the same day is when I checked the mail, and we get this letter from this company, and inside was a check for $3,500, $3,400 and something. And what was amazing about it was the amount that we got was the exact amount of every single bill that we had owed, and everything we had to pay, including the kids' school. So now the kids' tuition for the whole year that they're currently in is paid for. All of our bills are paid. And that is a blessing from God, because God didn't have to answer. God didn't have to send us that money. And then, and I forgot to mention this, because this happened this happened after hospice had called, but about a week or two before this had took place, hospice did call my husband, and they said they had gotten us approved. So the remaining balance of my dad's funeral was paid for. Now that alone, but besides the truck happened, I think, after this, the hospice nurse had called. But I mean, it was still a blessing because that was a financial part of our bills that we had included with everything else we had to pay, and it was covered. God took care of it. The hospice nurse called my husband and told him that it was paid for. They're going to cover the rest of the balance, which was a little over $1,000, but they still covered it, and that was still a blessing because it just amazes me that what we go through, it's never something that you don't stay in that valley for long. I mean, you have your moments to where, you're down and you're depressed. And like I told my husband when we were talking, I said, I could sit here and I could tell you every reason why I could give up on God. I could tell you why I didn't want to serve God, or I could tell you excuse after excuse on why God don't exist, or, whatever the reason may be for whatever struggles we go through. But I'm going to tell you this, God does exist and he is real. And despite the stuff that we go through, he's still here and he is with us each and every day. And if you are in a place of your life where you are not sure what's going on, then I urge you to take the time out from whatever you're doing and just say, God, show yourself to me. And I promise you, if you mean it and your faith is there and you truly believe, then God's going to show himself to you whether you believe in him or not.